I call the member for Balmain.
Thank you very much, Mr Temporary Speaker. I rise today on behalf of the Greens to support this important motion, marking 150 years since approximately 50,000 people from about 80 Pacific Islands were recruited or kidnapped to work in the sugarcane fields. And it was on the 25th of August last year that I learned a lot more about this issue when I attended a function at St John's in Glebe, addressing this issue and discussing the issue of South Sea Islanders. In particular, I was introduced in more detail to a word which really has come to signify the great shame of this period, which is blackbirding. As we heard, Faith Bandler, the daughter of the South Sea Islander who was blackbirded in the Queensland cane fields, that this marks a very sad and shameful period in our history. And today's motion goes some way to helping to address this. I'd like to recognise the representatives of the Australian South Sea Islander community who are in the gallery here today. Your dedication, your commitment to highlighting this matter, this part of history of Australian South Sea Islanders is so important, and I want to thank you all for taking the time to be here today. This motion is important because it recognises that as a community we must look to our shared history and acknowledge where great injustice has occurred. We do this for a number of reasons. We do this to learn from our past and to make a shared commitment to strive never to let such injustice occur again. We also do this to honour the lives of those upon whom these injustices were visited, as well as those who continue to live with that legacy today. I'm particularly grateful to those who have made that effort to be here today, as I've mentioned, to support this work, as these people and the many people they work with still live with the legacy of what happened, and we need to work to address this. As I mentioned, I've personally met a number of times with representatives of the Australian South Sea Islander community, including the 20th anniversary of the National Body for South Sea Islanders, and I'd like to particularly acknowledge Emelda for her fantastic work, particularly in my electorate on this issue. As Australians, we need to recognise the history of Australian South Sea Islanders. The recognition will form an important part of healing the past and addressing the present challenges. Importantly, this motion acknowledges the scale of exploitation of Australian South Sea Islanders. 50,000 people on 62,000 indenture contracts from around 80 islands. Those 50,000 people were either recruited or blackbirded, kidnapped and placed into indentured slavery in sugarcane fields. These people suffered inhumane treatment and incredibly high mortality rates. Many of these islanders didn't have immunity to common diseases, and as we know, 81 out of 1,000 died in their first year in Australia. South Sea Islanders, as you know, were taken from those islands, and it's important not just to remember the impact on them and honour that, but also remember the great cultural loss to each one of those 80 Pacific Islanders. Those young men, the potential they had, the capacity they had to build families and build community was stolen from those islands. We also need to reflect and recognise what was stolen, but not just those lives, but also that culture. And what is the living legacy of this dark history? There are 40,000 descendants of those affected living in Australia, many of whom now live in New South Wales. These people, many of whom suffer social and economic disadvantage and need to be addressed. Despite this, there's no specific programs aimed at addressing disadvantage in this community. Although they have access to programs aimed at Aboriginal Australians, this is not good enough because, as we have learned, the key to addressing entrenched disadvantage is recognising the unique attributes of each community. The Memorandum of Understanding by Bob Card was a useful first step, but it's important the government liaise, that they work towards a long-term path to justice and equality in line with the 1992 Human Rights and Equal Opportunities Commission report. I urge the government to support that. I commend the member for Sydney and hope that this important motion is the start of a path towards real social justice and recognition.
I thank the member for Balmain.